Hey y'all, how's it going? My name is The Marker, and welcome to my first video for The Last of Us Part 2. As I'm sure most of you know by now, The Last of Us Part 2 was officially announced by Naughty Dog at the 2016 PlayStation X event on December 3rd, and I cannot be any more excited this game is finally happening. Although we probably will not see the game until 2018 at the earliest, the first trailer definitely opens the door for a lot of speculation and discussion. With that being said, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of the theories I've come up with for the game. These are based on the trailer, as well as some subtle story hints given by the developers themselves. I've also taken into account some ideas that my buddies have had during our talks about the game. Please be aware that these are just theories and by no means am I claiming that any of them are or will be true. Here we go. The first theory, and my personal favorite, is that Ellie is seeking revenge for a child that was taken away from her and probably even killed by the Fireflies. Remember that Ellie's age in the sequel has been confirmed by developers to be 19, so it is possible that she would have had a child by now, as her own way of trying to help rebuild civilization and maybe even get over her survival guilt. The idea here is that since the Fireflies could not take Ellie away from Joel, perhaps they figured they would have better luck taking Ellie's child away from her. The Fireflies might have had a spy or scout who would find out about the child. They might have believed that Ellie's biological offspring would inherit her immunity. This belief alone would give them reason to kidnap Ellie's child. The theory suggests that the Fireflies took Ellie's child and killed it in an unsuccessful attempt to engineer a vaccine. This failed attempt would mean that not only did they kill the child, but they killed it for nothing. Personally, I think they would give more than enough motive for Ellie to go on this violent, murderous rampage we see in the trailer. And after all, Naughty Dog has stated this is a story about hate. Now you may be thinking, wait, but none of this matters, because didn't the Left Behind DLC suggest that Ellie was homosexual? While that's a fair argument, I respond with the fact that Ellie's relationship and subsequent kiss with Riley happened at a young age where she might have just been exploring her sexuality, especially with someone who truly was her only friend. Another possibility is that Ellie is actually bisexual. Or who knows, maybe, as I mentioned earlier, Ellie simply wanted to do her part in continuing the human race and there was no genuine attraction involved. In any case, it is not totally unheard of to think that Ellie may have had a child at some point since we last saw her, especially when you consider the fact that she was said to live in a rather safe and sustainable community for at least some time. One last thing I'd like to point out is why I believe it is in fact the Fireflies that Ellie is after. In the trailer, there is a brief moment where we see a stop sign with, you guessed it, the Firefly insignia. Of course, it is possible that this marking could have been placed there a long time ago, but I think Naughty Dog included it in the trailer for a specific reason. We know it to be true that by the end of the first game, the Fireflies are alive and well, albeit without their leader Marlene. So I think it is safe to say we have not seen the last of them yet. Moving on to theory number 2. This theory revolves around the idea that Ellie is getting back at the Fireflies because they destroyed Tommy's community in an effort to kidnap her or even simply kill her and Joel out of retaliation for the events of the first game. This theory makes the most sense chronologically because at the end of the first game, it is clear that our characters are going to live in Tommy's community, and in the trailer it seems that they no longer live there and are on the move. It can be assumed that Joel and Ellie lived in Tommy's community during the 4-year gap between the two games, which is more than enough time for someone, in this case Ellie, to grow attached to the community and call it home. The Fireflies could have attacked and absolutely destroyed the community, killing almost everyone, including Tommy. Perhaps such an inhumane act has driven Ellie on a mission for revenge against the people who took away the only semblance of a home she had left. However, while I think this is a good theory that makes quite a bit of sense, I think it is less likely to be true. The fact that this has been called a story about hate suggests to me that there is a much darker and more personal motive for Ellie. Losing a community is something to be expected in this world, and I think Ellie knows that enough to not let it drive her to such anger and aggression. Still, it is a possibility, and I would not be totally surprised to see it play out in the actual game. Last but not least, we have what I like to call Joe theory. I believe this theory is much less likely to be true, but it deserves to be brought up, especially since so many people seem to believe it in one way or another. The Joel theory claims that Ellie is avenging Joel, who has been killed either before or very early on in the story, similar to how Sarah was killed. If the Fireflies killed Joel, it makes perfect sense why Ellie has developed such a deep hatred for them, and why she has resorted to finding and killing every last one of them. After all, Joel was her father figure, and probably the only person alive who she really cared for. This theory also suggests that the Joel we see in the trailer is actually a ghost. Joel's role in the story, then, would be a sort of moral compass for Ellie as he watches her go down this dark path on his behalf. Now here's where I have a problem with this theory, though. First of all, in the trailer we see Joel carrying a gun. Why would a ghost have any reason whatsoever to carry a gun? Even if it is just a figment of Ellie's imagination, there's no believable reason why she should imagine her father figure with a gun. It just makes little to no sense to me. Second of all, if you look closely, you will see that Joel has a shadow. I am no ghost expert, but I do not think that any ghost would have a shadow because, well, they are not actually physically there. I admit that it is a bit suspicious how we do not get a good frontal view of Joel, but I think this was done more for dramatic effect than anything else. Another reason why I think Joel is alive and well is that the developers have been pretty adamant in their claims that this sequel is a continuation of Joel and Ellie's story. Although they have stated that Ellie is now the protagonist, they have made it a point to say that Joel is still very much involved in the story. I just do not see how Naughty Dog makes Joel's role in the story nothing more than a ghost. With that being said, I would not be surprised if he died towards the end of the game. But that is a theory for another video. So, let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Do you agree with any of these theories? Do you agree with only certain parts or some variations of them? Or do you have your own completely different theory that you'd like to share? That's all there is for this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to like and subscribe, and see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.